In this episode, we talk all about the NHL 2021 entry draft. And boy, did the Buffalo Sabres make a splash. We'll discuss those trades, the big top 3 draft picks, and some prospects you need to look out for. Hit the music. Welcome to Jablam Sports Hockey, folks. I'm your host, Peter Borjaranov, and the mic is always on. You can find me on Twitter at Russia98. You can find the full show at Jablam Sports. If you have any questions or comments, please tweet us. Use the hashtag Jablam Sports. That's JABLAM Sports. Please subscribe to us if you haven't done so yet, and click on the 3 dots in your podcasting app. Share our show with 3 hockey fans you know. Thank you, everyone. Remember, check out our website, go to jablamsports.com, see all our podcasts, and even game notes for each episode. You'll get links to all the things we mentioned on the show, including guests. For our podcasts, click on podcasts, and then hockey on this show specifically right on our website. What a long few days it's been. And the entry draft was much of the same, but it felt kind of long. Joining me to discuss the top 3 picks and the 2021 NHL entry draft in more detail are Chad DeDominicis. He's the managing editor at Die by the Blade and the host of the Expected Buffalo podcast. Thanks for coming on the show, Chad.
Yeah, not a problem.
You can follow him on Twitter at CMDeDominicis, as well as my Ducks guy, Jason Hernandez. He's the host of Locked On Ducks. You can find him on Twitter at StimpyJD. Jason, how you doing?
Doing okay here in humid, muggy Southern California.
It's better than over here, I'd say, in the greater Toronto area. I was checking out your bio, and I don't think I noticed this before, Jason. It says you've been to 36 MLB ballparks. There's only 30 last time I checked. So how many have you gone to that are extinct?
As of right now, I've gone to 7 that are extinct, including the other one in Canada, Montreal.
The old stadium over there.
Yep.
Nice. Is there anyone that you had good memories of that you really enjoyed yourself?
I really found myself enjoying what used to be called Jack Murphy Stadium in San Diego, even though it was kind of a dumpster fire of a stadium. I had a lot of very fond memories of watching games at the Q, or the Murph, as the locals called it at times.
Oh, man, I love ballparks. Like, I'm obviously a bigger fan of the sport of hockey, but there's something about baseball and ballparks that make the experience amazing and so unique at every single ballpark that you go to. Just phenomenal.
I mean, that's what I love about it, too. Just meeting the different fan bases, having the different food. I mean, I had to try something really good at each ballpark to see what they were offering, like the grasshoppers in Seattle, for example, or I'm not kidding, the Fruit Loop hot dog in Cleveland. Just some examples of some of the food I had on my travels.
Exactly. The food is what I'm talking about as well. You get the culture of the food in the ballparks. I'm surprised they haven't really brought that to the arenas, like the NBA games cities and the NHL cities. They really haven't brought that really strong aspect and culture of the city within them. So I hope they do in the future. So let's get to some hockey talk. And before we get to the picks of the entry draft, oh my God, trades. Oh my God, Buffalo. Chad, we can go on forever about what happened on the weekend with the trades, but Buffalo specifically, I guess we can recall the locker room cleanup and the exit interviews as a good inkling as to what was going to happen. But the Buffalo Sabres traded Rasmus Ristolainen to the Flyers for defenseman Robert Hagg, a first-round pick 2021, and a second-rounder 2022. And the following day, they trade Sam Reinhart to Florida Panthers for the Canadian goaltender, and we all saw him play pretty good at the World Championships, Devin Levi, and a first-rounder as well. I guess Eichel is probably next. Chad, How is Sabres Nation feeling about probably obviously entering another rebuild?
Yeah, I mean, we all saw this coming back in May, when those exit interviews happened. It's just, it is what it is. I think a lot of people at this point have accepted it. So, there's nothing really animosity wise here. I think it's funny how that went. The Ristolainen trade was unreal. I still can't believe what they got for him from the Flyers. But then they kind of, in a sense, gave it back, that goodwill on the Reinhart trade. That's not really what you expected for a player of his caliber. But, that kind of goes to show you how the league views it. A big right shot defenseman has more value in this league than, a forward of Sam Reinhart's caliber. I mean, we should have been given an inkling to that when you saw Pavel Buchnevich earlier in the day go for a second-round pick in Sammy Blais. So the market for the restricted free agent forwards with only 1 year left in their contracts wasn't that high apparently. But, they accomplished their goal of getting another first-round pick next year, and then they get Devin Levi to add to their system. So, it's not what you would have hoped for in the long run, but I think it accomplishes the goal. And then the big guys left. Jack is the big one who's going to go here. I would assume in the next few days. I don't think they want to let this linger any longer. So I think they've kind of narrowed it down to a few teams here that are realistically in this, and we'll see where he ends up.
We saw what they got, a good haul from Ristolainen. Do you still feel that Adams and the team are going to get that big haul for Eichel, or they're at least lowering their goal of getting exactly what they want?
Yeah, I mean, it's a game of chicken right now, right? So I think, Minnesota, Anaheim, Calgary kind of seem like the three teams that are really still around this. The Rangers, it sounds like they're out of it. So, I mean, those are kind of the big three teams that are really in on this thing still. So I think at the end of the day, they might not get everything they want. But it's kind of a game of chicken here if they're waiting things out. I honestly think if they're willing to take money back from Minnesota, that might get done relatively quickly. That seems like that's kind of the holdup is, the Sabres at this point being unwilling to take money back. But I think that's something they're going to have to concede to. So, you get that first round pick next year, and then you're going to get one of Ross or Boldy, maybe both, depending on how hard you want to push the Wild and maybe how the bidding war goes, but you're going to get at least one of those guys. And then if you get one of them, then maybe you get another piece besides that, whether it be a cap dump or another forward. So, I mean, they want 4 pieces that are equivalent to first-round picks, whether they're first-round picks or players that were first-round picks previously. That's the reported asking price. I still have a hard time seeing that they'll actually get that.
Yeah.
But there's nothing wrong with lowering it and going, okay, we'll take 3 pieces, and then we'll take Boldy, Rossi, and a conditional first-round pick, and we'll call it a day. Something along those lines.
Wow. Big moves there. So let's get back to our regular scheduled programming. Seriously, guys, tell me the truth. I was watching the draft. You guys were probably watching it as well. When did you change the channel, Jason?
I did not change the channel until the very end. I was still stunned at the Ducks pick because that was not a name that I was expecting the Ducks to go with. I didn't expect Mason McTavish, although, hey, a name that rhymes with Jason is not a bad name in itself. But nonetheless, I was expecting someone like a William Eklund in that number 3 slot, because a lot of the mock drafts, as we were getting closer and closer to the draft, we were seeing Mason move up to 8, 7, 6, and even a couple up to 5. But I never saw any mock drafts leading up to the day that he was going to go number 3. So when I really saw him get selected, my first reaction was, wow, this is kind of a people. They said, oh, that's kind of a risky move. I don't know if it's such a risky move because he is still a great two-way player. So I didn't think it was the worst possible deal in that. But I never really changed the channel, although I wanted to at the end, but that's another story for another day. Overall, it wasn't too bad.
Do you feel like, in particular with guys like Mason moving up in the draft, do you feel it's because I was going to even talk about this later, is a lot of the players, they didn't play the year prior, especially with the lockdown and COVID and everything. A lot of players in junior in Canada, We saw a lot of guys fall, but Mason got to play in the Swiss League during the year, so that probably knocked him up quite a bit.
Not only the Swiss League, but he got to play in the WJC's under 18 and did a stellar job in that tournament as well, that people for some reason aren't talking about enough. You got to remember, he won gold in that tournament and had an impressive tournament. That was the big turnaround, I think, for scouts, because they were able to see his two-way game. They were able to see the way he handled the puck in the dirty areas, the way that he was effective in bringing the puck up the slot. And something else that I didn't talk about that much until over the weekend, where there were people even comparing him to, yes, you're going to hear this name, Ryan Getzlaf. The reason people are comparing him, he's the same type of center, same type of body, about 6'2", about 200 plus pounds. Ryan Getzlaf, the same type of body, that same type of player. Mason does a great job utilizing his body in order to create space along the slot and be able to get those good shots up close. So when I think about the pick as a whole, it's not a bad pick at all. Is it a number 3 pick? That's the big question that I'm still kind of wrestling with myself. Is I still don't know if I would have taken him at 3. I would have been happy with him at 5 or 6, but that's a pretty massive jump from January to today.
A player who didn't take a massive jump, and we all predicted he would have gone first overall, was the Sabres' first overall pick, Owen Power. First off, when I think of it, I even saw the Sabres tweeted a video of Ryan Miller selling the city of Buffalo to Owen. Did you see that video, Chad?
Yeah, I thought it was actually really well done. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it was. I actually liked it. I actually felt like, man, I want to go to Buffalo too. I might not want to play for the Sabres at all, but the city looks really cool.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, I mean, that was pretty cool to see, Ryan come back and do that after being away from the franchise for how many every years it was. But, there's a lot of Ryan Miller fans back here still. So, totally unexpected and pretty cool to have that video ready to go. And yeah, I mean, it came across really nice. And, the Sabres social media team sometimes, gets a lot of flack. But, I think they got a lot of accolades for that one. It was very well done.
I do.
If I may chime in, just as
go ahead.
Oh, sorry. As a Ducks person, he's seen Ryan Miller have those fantastic words about Buffalo, and Ryan Miller obviously retiring with the Ducks. Even the fans over here love that video, and that says a lot about how we felt over here in Southern California.
Yep. Yeah, Ryan. Even St. Louis, all those places. Ryan's a great guy. So I could definitely see that. It's easy for fans to gravitate to him, and I think it's across the entire league. Especially when you consider that in 2010, leading Team USA to the gold medal game against Canada that he's infamous for. So I think that also picked up a lot of fans around, not only like in Buffalo or Anaheim or St. Louis where he played, or Vancouver, but I think just around the league in general, especially in the States. Oh
yeah, he definitely endeared himself here in Anaheim.
I'm gonna make sure I put that tweet on the game notes page for this episode again. Season 6, episode 32, JablamSports.com. Go to the website. You can get all the info and everything we talked about on this episode. Owen Power, there was rumors before, and this kind of made everybody a little scared, of him staying in college and playing for Michigan again. And we even saw so many of the players drafted by Michigan. Is there any truth to that rumor?
Oh, yeah, I think that's what's going to happen.
Yeah.
Yeah, for sure. And there's nothing wrong with that. I think that's actually the smart decision, not only for Power, but for the Sabres themselves. I mean, this is an organization. We kind of kicked this off talking about, going through a rebuild right now. And Power has maybe the highest ceiling of any player in this draft, but he also has a lot to work on at the level he's at right now. I think there were some things defensively and defending that he struggled with at the NCAA level. So, go back to Michigan, play top pair minutes in a really good Big Ten conference with Minnesota, Ohio State, Michigan State, Wisconsin. And then those are some powerhouse college hockey teams. And he's going to play for a good Michigan team too. And, it's going to have Matthew Beniers might go back, Ken Johnson might go back, I'm sorry, Ken Johnson is going to go back. Then Luke Hughes is going to join that team. And then the Sabres have Eric Portillo there. Brendan Brisson is there. So there's a lot of, Michigan a lot of NHL prospects at Michigan. So it'll be a loaded team. Go back, get your college experience that you missed out on because of the COVID year and, see where things go. And then maybe he gets the opportunity to play in the World Juniors this year. He didn't get it last year. Michigan wouldn't release him because of the COVID situation. But now if there's not quarantine issues, maybe they'll release him and he'll get the opportunity to play in the World Juniors too, which would be probably a nice experience for him.
Yeah, it would be a great experience. A lot of these guys don't want to miss out on that strong team in those college years. The 6'6" defender from Mississauga, Ontario Power is interesting now to have 2 first overall defenders in the last 3 years for the Sabres. Of course, Rasmus, I'm going to mix it up and say another Rasmus. Dahlin in 2018 and now Power, both left-handers. Obviously, Power won't play this season probably, but in the future, I guess they're both left-handers. You'd probably have them on different pairings moving forward.
Yeah, I think so. And that's the nice thing too. If Dahlin really turned it around playing under Don Coronado, who's going to be back as the head coach. So, if Dahlin really reaches that potential, then you have, you can say your first pair guy, and then you can have Owen Power if he meets his potential as your second pair guy. So ideally you can have 2, elite defensemen on 2 different pairs, if it all works out for you down the line. And that doesn't account for Henry Jokiharju too. And if he meets his, ceiling. So that's 3 first-round pick defensemen, that you could have on your blue line, and it'll lock down your team going forward. So, the Sabres blue line could really turn into something special if everything hits. But I think there's also a possibility that, let's see how things go, but maybe Dahlin does flip to the right side. He did that in Sweden before he came to the NHL, and he has the skill set to do so. The Sabres kind of are flush with a lot of left shot defenders, not only in the NHL, but in the prospect pool too, with Ryan Johnson from the University of Minnesota. He's a left shot. Matthias Samuelsson from Western Michigan, for some 32nd overall pick a couple of years ago. He's on a left-hand shot. And then they have Jacob Bryson too. It was a left-hand shot. So they just lost Will Borgen to Seattle. He was kind of one of their main right shot prospects, and he's gone to Seattle now. So it's possible that they could look into flipping Dahlin to the right side, but I guess we'll have to see how that all shakes out when training camp comes around or when Power does eventually join the team.
You mentioned Seattle there. The second overall pick, Matthew Beniers, was drafted. And of course, we're all going to know the answer to a future Jeopardy question. Who was the first pick selected by the Seattle Kraken in franchise history? That's Beniers. You said, Chad, you believe Beniers is probably going to go back as well, eh?
Yeah, I don't know. We'll see what Seattle does. I don't see why not.
Mm-hmm.
I think Beniers is more pro ready than I would say Power is. I watched a lot of. I could tell you, I think I watched every single Michigan game from last year at least 3 times. Mm-hmm. Not only because I wanted to get a look at Power and Beniers because they're at the top of the draft. Ken Johnson too is, one of my pet projects during the COVID lockdown was to, as I mentioned, watch Ryan Johnson, who plays at the University of Minnesota. So they're all in the same conference. They play each other a lot. So I watched a lot of Michigan hockey. So, I think Beniers is more of an NHL ready player right now, but I also think it wouldn't hurt to send him back, especially if Seattle's going to kind of go in that route, which we saw where they drafted a lot of young guys. Or they're not going to pull some sort of Vegas thing out here unless they go crazy in free agency, but that doesn't seem to be their approach. They're going to really use their cap space and kind of do kind of a slow build here. So I don't think there's any reason that you force him into your lineup. Let him go back to the University of Michigan. Same thing. Let him go back. Let him be your top line center. Let him go play in the World Juniors again. And then, bring him back when his college season is over and let him begin his pro career. Maybe gets a couple NHL games in and then he's ready to go for the next year.
What makes Beniers different from the others? And even going back to that, you think he's more NHL ready than his Michigan teammates?
I just think he plays a better two-way game. I think he can rely on him in both offensively and defensively. I think the style of game that he plays with, the way he sees the ice, the way he moves the puck, and how he plays in around the net, are NHL ready. But I think there's things in terms of his faceoffs, in terms of maybe his speed and decision making in certain areas that I think he could use to work on back in college. And another year of development definitely doesn't hurt any player. But compared to Johnson and Power, I mentioned Power, I think has some deficiencies in his game defensively that I think would help him to go back and work on, in terms of his pivoting, how he dealt with, forwards on the forecheck, and even some of his decision making in his own end. I think he can stand to work on those things. And Ken Johnson, he has that excellent offensive game, the flair, the shot, the stick handling ability, but he really struggled with decision making. There was a lot of turnovers, just didn't read plays well at time. And then I thought also defensively, same thing. I think he just wasn't up to snuff. So, Johnson, I think is definitely obviously going to go back. But that's why I would put Beniers ahead of the other two as, the most NHL ready guy right now of the three.
Again, you can find them on Twitter at StimpyJD for Jason and at CM DeDominicis for Chad. Gentlemen, thank you for stopping by.
No problem.
Thanks for having us.
Now time for some more in-depth 2021 NHL Draft chat. Joining to discuss is Dillon Galloway. He's head scout for Eastern Canada for FC Hockey, covering the NHL Draft. You can reach him on Twitter at Dillon Galloway _ there at the end. Make sure you remember that. Welcome back to the podcast, Dillon.
Hey, AP. How's it going?
Oh, it's one of those summers where it's like, oh my goodness, summer's almost over. Are you at least getting out and enjoying it as much? I know hockey's been still hectic.
Oh, you know what? July has just been mayhem. It seems as soon as things opened up, I've got a wedding to go to next weekend. I've had my engagement pictures this weekend. My mom's 60th birthday this month. So every weekend has had something. And now that I've got my second shot and most people have, it seems like people are ready to get out and get back to seeing people. So yeah, no, July's been busy, including the draft too, obviously, which is what we're here to talk about.
We will get to teams that were hits and misses at this draft soon enough. You've come to the show prepared, covering the draft. Which prospects really stand out and why?
So in a positive sense, the one that stands out, or the few that stand out to me are Matthew Coronado to the Calgary Flames at 13. I love that pick. I love that player. He's a little bit shorter, stouter. He's a very aggressive forechecker. He's got really good speed, and the kid is a shooting machine. I wrote an article about him for FC Hockey, and I covered his shots and how excellent he is at shooting. He's also really intelligent. I think in the article I wrote that I think he took over 400 shots this season, 226 at the net, and he had a 25% shooting percentage. So the Calgary Flames are getting an incredible prospect in Matthew Coronado, and I'm so happy that he went that high because, as I said, he is a little bit shorter. So sometimes you see players that are, not 6'4", start to slip down the draft. And then the other two that I'll talk about are
before you get to that.
Sure, yeah.
With the way he is and his stature, and he shoots a lot, how will he be able to adapt his game to still get off a lot of shots, being, a little bit smaller in stature?
He's excellent at reading the play. He's excellent at finding space where there isn't any. So he does a really good job of when an opponent is coming down on him, reading and reacting to whatever that opponent is doing, and having kind of multiple plays in his head, whether that's shoot or pass. I find he's almost equally as good at both, but I prefer his shot than his passing ability, to his playmaking ability. So he's actually really able to get into the home plate area thanks to the aggressive way in which he enters the zone. He doesn't often enter the zone through the perimeter. He likes to enter the zone through a diagonal path through the neutral zone, and that helps him enter the zone in the center lane. And that's really important, is getting between those the dots and getting inside on players. He does not own the speed to beat players from the outside, in my opinion. I think he does need to work on his conditioning. I find that through the season, he did get, I don't want to say slower, but his stride got a little choppier. And I think that was just, knowing people in the Chicago Steel organization. I know they put the kids through an intense training regimen. And I think that really prepared them for a good Clark Cup run when they obviously won the USHL championship this year. So when I watched him play, his skating got a little bit worse through the year, but I think that had they not put him through this intense training, that it would have been even worse. So I think his projection to the NHL, he's got a good upside to him. And being in that Steel organization last year and moving on to Harvard and staying in the NCAA system for the next few years is going to be incredible for his development and developing that more, playing against men, so to speak, in the NCAA.
Cool. Who else did you have?
Yeah, so my next two. So this is going to be a theme, I guess. Is I have two players here that are also on the shorter side of the stature perspective. In Dillon Duke, that went to Tampa Bay Lightning at 126. We had him on the cusp at FC Hockey of the first round. I love this player. He is, I hate using this trope, but he's a Zach Hyman type. He is a workman. He will go get the puck. And I think his offensive game is underrated. His skating is kind of what holds him back a little bit in that perspective. But he's not afraid to be first in the puck, despite his stature. And I don't think that's going to be an issue in the next levels because he is intelligent with how he makes plays. So he's able to get on the puck and he shoulder checks quite often. So he's not putting himself in a dangerous position when he is first on the puck, which can be a problem for some smaller players, especially as they start competing against bigger, faster opponents. But I find that he does a really good job of understanding who is coming down on him and already assessing 1, 2, or 3 plays that he can make to get the puck to the right position in the ice. So that's one player that I think is incredible value for the Tampa Bay Lightning. I mean, unsurprising, they're fantastic at picking up players deeper in the draft. And the third player that I would mention here in terms of being really excited to see where they end up in their development path is Ty Voigt to the Toronto Maple Leafs at 153. We at FC had him at 43rd overall on our list, and I personally had him in the 40 to 50 range. Mm-hmm. I'm really high on him. I wrote an article. So he didn't play this year. Obviously, he's a Sarnia Sting player. So the OHL was shut down this season. And I think had he played a full season or played any season, he would have gone in the second round. Now, again, he's short and he's slight. So he's a smaller player. But his mobility and his skill with the puck, it's almost first round talent. If he wasn't so small and so slight, he's an incredible playmaker. He does a great job of getting the puck to the middle of the ice. And a player I would compare him to in this draft is Zach Dean from the QMJHL. I think they're fairly similar. Zach Dean's a little bit bigger and possibly a little bit better of a playmaker. But I just think that Ty Voigt, especially at 153rd overall, for a player that I think is going to put up, potentially like 80 to 90 points next season in the OHL. I think that's incredible value by the Toronto Maple Leafs, and an incredibly intelligent pick where they got him. So,
do you feel that the NHL's game is changing that much that it seems like a lot of these teams, and you can see by the way even the Kraken drafted their expansion team and the way Vegas is built, their defenders are still hulking and large. And some of the prospects you named that you look to see as they go into their careers here, and the guys now that are in the NHL that are really making the game a little bit more open-ended and more excitement and driving the game's offense, they're the shorter players. So is the game changing that much that the forwards are becoming these smaller guys and then just the defenders are the taller guys?
I potentially I do think that there is a space for smaller defenders, but I think in the rush offense, and particularly with how we structure the PK these days, it's very much built on speed, skill, and smarts. And I would honestly place smarts at the top of the list. So if you're looking at a hierarchy of a player prototype, smarts would be number one on my list. You have to be incredibly intelligent. I mean, looking at a player like Mark Stone, he doesn't necessarily use his body to crush players, even though he's a solid size player. His skating is absolutely atrocious if you look at it. It physically pains me sometimes watching him skate down the ice with the puck on his stick. But he's incredibly intelligent with it. His stick lifts are so on point. And he knows when to make the break to get ahead of the puck and receive that pass. So players like that, I think, are super successful. And then in terms of size, we just watched Cole Caulfield and Nick Suzuki. There are no physical specimens in terms of height or weight and throwing their body around. Nick Suzuki is, I think, one of my favorite hockey players of all time. And again, it's that intelligence. It's incredibly important to be able to read and understand the play as it's occurring and stack some of your capabilities on top of that. So when you have a really high IQ on the ice, that allows you to stack your puck skills on top of that, which is why I think Ty Voigt is going to be a player that is able to succeed at the NHL level, because he does have that intelligence, but he also has the puck skill and the skating. So he's going to be one of those players that I think, despite his size, makes it not necessarily a Braden Point. I'm not going to vault him up to that status. And I think that that's where we have to be cautious as well, is that when you see players like Braden Point, they are elite at what they do. And that's why they succeed. It is tough for smaller players to succeed when they're in the bottom six, because they don't have the teammates to be able to allow them to make the plays that they normally would. So they might not get the opportunities, to be honest, because the third and fourth line, they'll get the starts in the defensive zone or their side of the red line, basically.
What skill set? Like when you mentioned Braden Point, that's a great point there. Braden Point, and even going back to Martin St. Louis and Theo Fleury, they're very differently built, cut of the cloth of, say, a Johnny Gaudreau and a Mitch Marner. What is there a skill set, or are GMs looking for that when they're drafting, that you're looking for in that diminutive, offensively skilled winger that can flip the script come playoff time?
Yeah, the playoffs are definitely a different beast. I think that you do need a little bit of grit. And I think that that's something that they're looking for, that competitiveness. So when I describe a player like Dillon Duke, and I describe a player like Matthew Coronado, something that I'll use to describe them is high motor. Their feet are constantly moving, and they're almost unafraid to go anywhere on the ice. And again, as I mentioned for I mentioned for Dillon Duke, it can be dangerous for players like that to be first on the puck deep in the offensive zone, because if you have a player like Jamie Alexiak within reach of you as you jump on the puck in the corner, you might not be playing the next game. It's going to hurt. So I think that players like that need to have the intelligence to understand where their body is physically going after they get on the puck. And one thing that I think is going to be super important for Dillon Duke in particular is something I call deceptiveness, or something that is referred to as deceptiveness, and specifically deceptiveness of his feet. So he needs to be dictating what defenders are doing when they are bearing down on him. And to do that, he can use his feet to angle himself in such a way that it confuses the defender as to where he's going to end up after receiving the puck. So if his feet are facing north-south, you can almost guarantee he's going to be moving north-south. If his feet are facing east-west, you're not really sure which direction he's going to be going. And so when he moves into the puck, he can go forward or backward. And when a player like Jamie Alexiak, who doesn't have a lot of mobility, but is big and strong, he might miss Dillon Duke when he's coming down for a hit. Now, Dillon Duke is not a great example of this because his skating is the thing that's limiting him. Mm-hmm. But I think if he can fix his skating, then he's going to be a great player that fits that mold of gritty, smart, and a good playmaker. So that's kind of why I put him in that category of Hyman-like players.
I love this conversation. It's great. And even listening to ex-NHL player Mark Savard, he kind of goes into teaching the younger players that kind of deceptiveness and being able to see where hits happening and being able to avoid or use it as an advantage to get into the next play. Is there any pick out there, prospect that kind of that was a little shocking to you during the draft?
Yeah, I mean, there's multiple. I think the Sens had two in particular. The first one being Ty Boucher. Now, I'm not. This is nothing against the player, obviously. There was merit to select him in this draft. And Trent Mann, the Ottawa Senators head scout, has come out and said they had intelligence that somebody was going to be picking him in the next 3 picks. So fair enough. I'll give them that. I'm not an NHL insider, so I don't have that kind of intelligence. But this player for me at 10 is a reach, simply because I felt that there was better players on the board. And while you're looking for players that fit your list or fit your playing style, I also firmly believe in BPA, best player available. A player like Chaz Lucius, to me, should have gone top 15. I forget where he went. He went to the Winnipeg Jets, and I believe it was around, they had the 18th overall pick. So that's a little bit of a slip for Chaz Lucius, who I think is an incredibly smart offensive player. And for Ottawa to take Ty Boucher, we had him listed at, I believe, 90, somewhere in the 90s. To take him at 10 is obviously shocking. Now, since the draft, I've had the opportunity to look at Ty Boucher as well as look at some of his numbers. Something interesting I found was that he had a 56% Corsi for percentage. What that means is he drives play fairly well when he's on the ice. He does a great job of getting shots within the home plate area. He's a little bit Brady Tkachuk-like in that he sits in front of the net and is able to get a great amount of shots and a great amount of not a lot of goals, but a lot of his goals come from that area in front of the net. So, the drafting is always, we'll see in 5 years, but that one certainly shocked me. And as someone who grew up as a Sens fan, watching them take players year after year, maybe slightly above where I would have had them rated, can be a little bit frustrating and shocking. But, I think he'll be a player. The other thing, too, I'll quickly mention is Byron Bader has a prospect model, and his prospect model currently has Ty Boucher being a better player than Tom Wilson. Now, that is what it is. Those are numbers. So you can't rely on them fully and completely. I don't foresee him being a better player than Tom Wilson. So, but that's what the numbers are saying. So that's all I'll say about that, I guess.
Cool. I know Leafs fans want to know about Matthew Beniers, and we'll have a link to it on our game notes. We're not going to talk about it. Again, if you want to go to jablamsports.com, Season 6, Episode 32, we're going to have links to all the players that Dillon is talking about right from FC Hockey. Before you go, Dillon, there's a lot of kids that are great out there, and I know it's a little early to tell how they're going to project, but if you can name a team that was drafting in the 2021 draft, which team do you think overall did a fabulous job?
I really, really love what Dallas did. I think that they had one of, maybe not underrated, but they just seem to be there were players that were falling, and they seem to be taking them every single time. So their first pick, Wyatt Johnson, not necessarily a player that was falling, but I love that pick. I love watching Wyatt Johnson play. And then they had multiple picks after that were just incredible. Logan Stankoven was rated to go in the first round, and they got him at 47. Directly after that, they stole Artem Grushnikov, who was a defensive defenseman out of Russia, at 48. Ayrton Martino, a small but highly effective offensive forward, they stole at 73. And Justin Ertl, who I know one of our scouts, Sean Richardson, is a big fan of, they got him at 79. So they just had pick after pick that I kept saying, wow, I can't believe they got him there.
Out of all those picks, they sound great. Which one do you think is really they knocked one out of the park?
It's either Stankoven or Martino. I know that our WHL scouts were huge on Logan Stankoven. He's incredibly competitive. He's that style of player that I'm talking about in terms of compete, motor, but small. He's 5'8", 170. So he's obviously not, he's got to ask for someone to reach the cookies on the top shelf for him maybe, but I think that that's incredible value at where they got him. So I think that that's got to be the player that all the Dallas fans should be, cheering about getting where they got him.
Again, you can find him on Twitter at Dillon Galloway _ Dillon, again, thank you for stopping by again.
Thank you very much, Peter.
I want to thank our guests today, Chad DeDominicis, for all his insight into Sabres' plans moving on from their core. Damn, it's been another rough year there in Buffalo. Jason Hernandez, he's always fun to talk to with his takes. They're always interesting. And also thanks to Dillon Galloway. He really goes to a lot of games and gets great analysis on these prospects. Make sure you follow them. Remember, if you've enjoyed anything you've heard in this episode, or don't, please tweet at me or even our guests. You can follow me on Twitter at Russia98 or the entire team at Jablam Sports. If you want, you can also contact us on our website. You can use the hashtag at Jablam Sports, Jablam Sports, that's JABLAM, and our website is jablamsports.com/contact for our contact page there. Please check out our website. Go to jablamsports.com to see all our podcasts and even game notes for each episode, including this one. And you'll get our guests' info and links to things we mentioned on this show. Please subscribe, rate, and review us on Apple Podcasts, Google Play, or wherever you get your podcasts, including Spotify. And of course, click on the 3 dots in your podcasting app and share this episode with 3 friends you know. Please and thank you. Also, follow us on our Facebook group, Jablam Sports. Check us out, folks. Thank you, everyone. And to every one of our listeners, I'm giving you a virtual hug. Stay healthy, listen, be yourself, and stay strong.